What is up, my fellow anti-netters, my true anti-netters, and my subscribers of the Scott Scheper Letter, my Sheparians, and of course, my frickin' freebie-seeking Zettelkasten YouTuber shitweasels. Hello to you too, you frickin' fellow shitweasels. Hope you're doing well and hope you're enjoying your time farting around in the comments. Anyways, let's jump into it. What I want to talk to you today is about something called branch collectives in a Zettelkasten. You see, you probably haven't heard of the term branch collectives because you've been brainwashed in reading all the drivel diarrhea that Zonke Arends has spit out on a page in a book called How to Take Smart Notes. And, you know, he's invented terms like literature notes, even project notes. I don't even know if he even frickin' knows what he even frickin' wrote in that book. He definitely doesn't know what a Zettelkasten is. But anyways, all rants aside, I'm going to show you something called branch collectives in a Zettelkasten. And look, I did not invent this. The term collectives and collective references actually comes from a scholar named Johannes Schmidt from Bielefeld University in Germany, where Nicholas Luhmann himself taught and where his 90,000 plus note card vault, his 2 Zettelkasten boxes, still reside. Okay, so that's where the term collectives came from. Now, here is what a branch collective is. Okay, so we're going to turn to the Bible, the true Bible of Zettelkasten, and that is, of course, the Anti-Net Zettelkasten. Okay, written by some dildo named Scott P. Scheper. I don't know who that guy is or who he thinks he is, but in his own mind, he's starting a frickin' revolution. And, you know, rumor on the street is he actually has. So anyway, we're going to dive in, and I'm going to open up in this section here. Let me just show you this. There is, I've talked about it before, but my favorite section in this book is part 3, knowledge development. And I go through the 4 phases of knowledge development. That is how to select pieces of knowledge and select, books and sources, and then how to select, knowledge and pieces of wisdom within those sources. And then extraction. There's various methods of extraction. I teach, and for the most part, I currently practice the 2-step Lumanian extraction method of how to extract nuggets of knowledge onto out of a book onto your card on a staging post called bib cards, and then creating main notes. And then there's creation and then installation. Okay, so we're going to dive into the chapter within the creation chapter, and it is on page 477. Fellow citizens, turn to your gospel and open your gospel up to page 477, verse 1, branch collectives. Okay, so branch collectives, basically, here's the outline of it. Okay, so this talks about branch collectives. Okay, I'm not going to read this out to you because you're not a freaking 5-year-old. Okay, even though you're a 6-year-old because you're a YouTuber shitweasel. Okay, freebie seeking Zettelkasten YouTuber shitweasel. Anyway, this is an actual branch collective from Nicholas Luhmann's archive. Okay, and unless you can read sloppy German, I have frickin' gotten a translation of what this actually says on this card, and you can read it in the book. But essentially what he does, as in the front of his section, so this is section 17, which really translates because he went to four digits. It's really 1700 in his Zettelkasten. Okay, and so how it works is, I'm going to show you some of my branch collectives. Is what ends up happening, and I don't want to get into outline collectives right now, but all right, what ends up happening is when you are working on a project. So for instance, I was working, this is kind of meta, okay, so get ready for this. I was working, this is basically my entire vault of my project. This is basically all the material, the source material that went into creating that freaking book over there, the Anti-Net Zettelkasten book, okay? And there's different types of notes, there's different types of notes like that went into it, right? And so at the very, very beginning of this section, which is 4214, this is my Zettelkasten section. This is my branch collective. You see how I have a bunch of subtopics that are then linked, okay, in this branch collective. It's basically a collection of links at the very front of your section, okay? And this is different from basically, the index. The index is kind of like a broad map, okay, that you look up certain terms, and then that term, like if I looked up Zettelkasten here, back here in the Z category, the Z column, let's see if I can do this, is Zettelkasten. You see how it says Zettelkasten right there? 4214, that then directs me to the 4214 branch. And then at the very beginning of this branch, I have a series of cards which are branch collectives. That's kind of like a loose, evolving table of contents, okay? And notice, it's not like some, stupid term like maps of content or something like that. This is something you don't have to structure and do all that. It evolves, okay? And it's just for this section. And so as you're working on a project, like writing a book and doing a ton of research, if you want to find, pieces of within that book, sections within the book, you refer to your branch collective, okay? And that's how you go about kind of like organizing and evolving knowledge behind your cards here. So like I'm just gonna pull out this random one. Okay, so this is 4214 / -1000. You see how I did -1000? I did that because I really wanted this to appear at the very front of the section, and then /4, meaning this is like the fourth branch collective. Okay, so compound knowledge. So for anything that talks about compound knowledge, 4214 / 1 / 0 / H. I don't know if that's an H or an A. I don't know. /9. So we can find out. Let's go to 4214 / 0 / let's assume it's A. 4214 / 0, 4214 / 1 / 0, 4214 / 1. It's over here. Oh yeah, I think it is A. Okay. /9. Okay, so here we are. We're almost there, actually, ladies and gentlemen. Look at that. I haven't touched this in frickin' like a long time. Okay, look at this. So here's where we talk about Albert Einstein holds compound interest to be the eighth wonder of the world. And then I have a reference. That's a Zotero reference, as you can see. Warren Buffett attributes his life and all his success to being simply a product of compound interest. Simple things compound into complex things. Einstein and Buffett were referring to the positive idea of this. Lots of money. Yet we've seen from the simple mix-up of imperial units, it can also lose a lot, it can also lose a lot of money. And then I go into, basically, that's a type of link that I talk about. It's kind of like a sectional branch link. Okay, I talk about that in the book as well. So the point of this is this little simple everyday commitment in building, evolving your notebox's mind and its memory will have a compounding, basically a compounding effect, compound interest. Okay, and so what I want to also look at this. This is interesting. So I decided to add a nugget behind this. So you see how this card is 4214 / 1 / 0 / A / 9A. Okay. What I did was, apparently while I was reading Krojewski, who is another like scholar and a guy that's read a lot and taught a lot about knowledge management, he wrote that on the evolving function of an antinet or a Zettelkasten, as one knowledge scientist put it, one can also trust that with information successfully provided over time, future knowledge will be enriched. And so he basically highlights the aspect that Luhmann talks about, and that is an aspect of whenever you create a Zettelkasten, a true Zettelkasten, and you're actually doing things the hard way and stamping it on your mind, you are experiencing like one of the miracles, what Einstein called the eighth wonder of the world in compound knowledge, compound interest. So you see how I just literally, that was not rehearsed. I just pulled that out of my freaking ass, and by ass I mean my freaking anti-net Zettelkasten, and just started using it. And look at how enriched that content is. All of this content, which then can be turned into like an endless number of essays, endless number of posts, or even this freaking YouTube video where I'm showing you an example. Okay, and so that really illustrates what branch collections are, or can't speak, branch collectives are. Okay, and there's other really interesting things in here as well, with branch collectives that you can use. And so, for instance, for the past year, I've been secretly in the background creating an incubator called Right to Freedom, where I'm basically teaching people how to make multiple six figures as an independent scholar, writing one thing a month, an independent writer, creator, or thinker, and making multiple six figures a year. Well, one of the ways that I'm teaching Right to Freedom is, some of it is, I'm very anti-teaching in terms of pulling up PowerPoint slides. I want people to actually absorb and neuro-imprint this knowledge and the concepts on their mind, and then take action. And actually, I basically created a software platform where we clone in and we work together and we launch and create all of the infrastructure, just plug and play. Now, one of the ways that I teach is actually, stamping in certain knowledge and concepts into people's minds. Well, at the very beginning of Right to Freedom, of this branch, I have, guess what? A branch collective that helps navigate now. This is like a budding, everyone that I take on to work with privately in Right to Freedom, in my incubator, leaves with a freaking stack of a branch of knowledge that they can then continue to evolve for the rest of their life. Okay, so this is the concept of branch collectives. Now, what are you going to even use or create with branch collective? Well, one of the most important things, and this is what a lot of people miss, is they just start procrastinating and getting into Zettelkasten, and it's basically just an intellectual form of masturbatory procrastination. Okay, if you're just going to create freaking notes all day. Okay, the key is, how do you turn these notes, this knowledge, into actual output, and then how do you turn that output into something that creates a movement, attracts a tribe? And also, how do you leverage this in such a way where you're like me? You can make multiple six figures basically by creating content and creating reading freaking books and taking notes and creating and writing. How do you do that? Well, that's what I talk about in the Scott Scheper Letter. So if you're not a subscriber of the Scott Scheper Letter, then you freaking need to tune in and listen up. So I go through how to actually organize using Zettelkasten cards and walking you through, the numbering, okay, of how to actually write. Like, for instance, how this is like the concept. I go in here of how I wrote the first chapter of my anti-net Zettelkasten book using a formula of actually telling your origin story, and sharing it with the world, so that you can actually create a book that is the #1 bestseller on day one on Amazon, which I've since taken it off of Amazon. You can only get my book on my website, scottscheper.com/antinet, by the way. You can see the link in the bio. And then you can also, on my website, find the area to subscribe to the Scott Scheper Letter. And so this is a physical monthly newsletter. This is like my pride and joy, my craft that I sit down on my ass and write out by hand every single month and teach the best lessons for how to make it as an independent writer, creator, and thinker. So it's all lessons in writing, knowledge development, marketing, everything. And so that's what I want to share with you. That's branch collectives. And then I've cap this off, of course, with shilling my own stuff. So check it out if you haven't. Otherwise, feel free to continue on and persisting in being a freebie-seeking Zettelkasten YouTuber shitweasel. I love you either way, but I love my true anti-netters and the tribe members, my subscribers of the Scott Scheper Letter, even more. All right? Peace.